we're going to see more and more of this stuff happening. Right. And I speak for everyone on this podcast. Like I guarantee everyone on here, you guys are the one in your friend group. And what I mean by that is the one that's diving into all of this kind of weird rabbit hole stuff, right? So it's our responsibility, right? Like we get to be that person that has that cool trick, the same way that your other friend might know how to fix your tire when it blows in your car, right? This is our trick, right? And so again, we're all mechanics in different ways. And so just having those couple of things, plus the encapsulated CBD and the pepper kernels on hand, that works fantastically.
Great tips. Those I did not know too. So I love that you hit that. So we did a trip, good and or bad. We learned something, and now we have some things to implement. We're going to implement those. This is post-trip now. Now we're like, okay, we have a journal of our tips and whatnot. Now, I think there's a time to set boundaries with this medicine as well, right? I think post-trip is a good marker of like, hey, I did it this day. It's done now. Setting boundaries, because I think we all have had, if you engaged with cannabis, we've all have had at one point or another had to stop. It wasn't working for you anymore. You didn't have boundaries and it overtook you, gave you anxiety, whatever the case may be. Would you say having boundaries post, having a trip or connecting with it is, advised?
Yeah, what I would say overall is, there's not going to be like one right or wrong answer, but I will tell you this, right? So what I typically tell people is if you are, passionate about having a conscious relationship with cannabis, you got to make sure you can take 3 days off in a row, right? Whatever you can't take 3 days off of owns you. Paul says that. I love it. It's been a great ethos of mine. And I've found this works really well with people, right? So again, like I said, if I go to a music festival, I'm probably going to connect with a little bit of cannabis like every day, right? I've never been an all-day smoker. I just never liked it. It burned me out too much. I'm too high energy, but it's always been a nighttime thing for me. So I might do that 7 days in a row. But then when I get home, I'm going to make sure that I'm going back to my typical schedule, which is Monday through Friday, no cannabis. On the weekends, it's optional if I feel like I can handle it and I have the space for it and I have a genuine reason to want to dive into it, right? If I'm stuck somewhere, I can't seem to solve something with the same level of thinking that created it, I then go behind the veil, connect with the plant, learn something new about myself, then implement it the next week. So what I would tell people is, and the last thing I want to do is give anyone like some guilt or shame, right? Like, there's no guilt or shame. Like everyone has their own life. There is no right or wrong. But what I will say is this, right? I personally, and the people I work with, they come to me at a certain point when they do not want to feel like cannabis is controlling their lives anymore. And the funny thing is, the first thing I have them realize is it's not anything to do with cannabis. You are trying to control your life, right? And you are probably telling yourself unconsciously that there are good emotions and bad emotions. And good emotions are very useful. Bad emotions are just an annoyance. So get them out of the way as fast as possible. And so what I help them realize is actually all of that is good, because a lot of times, just like when you play chess, right? I used to play chess with my dad and I'd get absolutely wrecked by him every time. And I get frustrated and you go, Ryan, don't get upset. You only learn things when you lose, right? And so again, like I've heard another one of my mentors say, you should be excited to fail, right? You should be excited to get things quote unquote wrong, right? And so at the end of the day, it's not something to feel shame over or guilt over or anything like that. It's just simply to realize that cannabis can work so much better when you are not codependent with it. It's the same as a relationship, right? Like, how great of sex can you have with your partner if you're literally depending on him or her to live your entire life for you, right? You wake up and you're like, can you give me a kiss? I just need a kiss or I can't feel good without you, right? How attractive are they going to be to like, have sex with you, right? And again, judgment, just again, I'm just using the example. So with cannabis, we don't think about it the same way as the plant, but it's a living being, right? And if it feels you're coming to it all the time, it's going to feel a little nervous to show you the real shit, right? Like it's because it's going to know like, I might overwhelm this person, and also you're not going to be able to have a endocannabinoid system that is flushed enough to really access the true power of the plant, right? So again, the exemptions from this, or the exceptions to this, would be if someone right now is listening and they're using cannabis to go through Crohn's disease or cancer or something like that. I am not saying that for you should take days off, right? Like that's something we can talk about privately for sure. Like there are ways and things, but I don't want anyone to think, oh, I'm on cancer treatment for cannabis, but Ryan said I should take 3 days off. Definitely not the case, right? So like I said, I'll generalize, but I want people to make sure that I want to make sure that people know that I'm telling them like, hey, use some discernment with this. If you're using it to get off pharmaceuticals or something like that, there's going to be some bending in this. But for the average consumer who's like healthy, that's listening to this, that, wants to be highly optimized, shameless plug, right? So if you want to do that, and you really want to access these powers, I highly recommend taking a minimum of a 3-day break per week, and then making sure that you're really aware of like when you're craving cannabis and why, because that can tell you a lot too, right? Cannabis can show you a lot without ever interacting with the plant. And what I mean by that is, say you've been dependent for a while, and so you decide to take like a 3-month break. During this time, you might believe like, oh, well, my lessons with cannabis have ended for now, and when I get back to cannabis, then I'll keep learning. But if you started to notice when you craved it, maybe you realized, oh shit, every time I get to work, I just crave cannabis so much. What does that inform me to? Maybe I'm not at the right job, right? So again, like you can start learning lessons from cannabis, even in the absence of it. And that's what I tell a lot of people is, let's say you have a romantic partner, and that romantic partner and you have been living together for say 5 years, right? And you really know each other. And let's say that you now are at a job where they're going to give you a promotional deal, right? And you're going to make $300,000 extra a year, but you got to move a town over, right? So you could think like, oh, man, what would my partner say? She'd say, go for it. All right, I'm going to go for it, right? So you can think, because you know them well enough, like what they would say. Cannabis works very similar. And that's a lot of what we train people to do in the program, is be like, what would cannabis tell you? Like you can tap into that softer version of yourself without the plant. What would it tell you? What would you tell you? Because that's really what's happening. Cannabis is just a permission slip to have a different part of you come forth. That's all that's happening, right? So at the end of the day, you can tap in and go, say you're about to argue with someone, right? You could tap in and go, what would my softer version of myself say? It would say that even if I feel I'm right, it's not worth spending this energy because this person and I are just not seeing eye to eye. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong and I'm right or anything. It just means that, you know what, this is not a good use of energy for either of us. And I'm just going to agree to disagree and walk away, right? So you don't need cannabis to continue getting these lessons. And so that's why I say that when I get stuck, that's when I'll go back in, because that happens often, right? Like I'll get stuck and be like, I really can't seem to figure this out. I'll go behind the veil and I'm like, man, it was right there, and now I know a different aspect of myself that I can call on if I feel that situation present itself again. So yeah, that's what I would recommend overall.
Great pro tip right there. Asking yourself what the plant would do and accessing it on your own. Yeah. All right. Very awesome pro tip. Thank you guys for watching this little podcast clip. I am on this journey of growing and finding people that could best influence us with the best information, the stuff that the mainstream can't cover and won't cover, and that even experts that me and you both know will not touch because they don't want to get canceled and whatnot. So I'm trying to find this uncensored information to share with you guys. If you guys like it, please leave a like. If you're also a person trying to improve their life with real information, not things that are on the mainstream, please subscribe. And thank you for watching. And thank you for joining me on this journey. Peace out.